One of the things that's missed when we're talking about success is who it is that you're going to become through the process of getting success. And this is very, very important because I've coached many, many wealthy clients that are making hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions of dollars. And oftentimes they're completely miserable. So what they've done is they've focused on and optimized the money-making component, but they've never stopped to consider who it is that they're becoming in the process. And what will wind up happening is at some point they're going to hit some kind of personal crisis, or maybe they just have too many people around them that are using them or things like that. And they wind up becoming miserable, often to the point of even being suicidal. And I've actually had ex-clients that are currently dead right now, and that's literally because they became so successful, but they didn't manage what was going on inside of them, and then they might use that, or they might deal with that by medicating it with drugs and alcohol, or being around terrible, terrible people, and having personal crises. And it's really, really a sad thing. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting right out here on this balcony with famous entrepreneurs that you would think would be the happiest people in the world. And we're sitting there talking about life, and they're just empty shells. It's really, really a sad thing. Now, a lot of people that are failures and lazy will hear about this and they'll say, well, that's why I don't want to get rich then. That's why I don't want to be successful. I don't want it to be empty. You know, we'll talk about examples of people maybe who got a lot of social success and they realize over time that it's empty. And then somebody who's lazy will say, well, then I'm not going to go out and get social success. No, that's not the answer. The answer is simply to look at who it is that you're becoming in the process of doing the work and realizing that the work is actually shaping you. So we're going to be going into this in this video. And the reason being is that once you have this aligned, you're going to be super duper jacked up to go out and smash it. You're going to have extra motivation. And this is going to get you something that I like to call endless motivation. Now, endless motivation is the title of the new program that I have coming out. And this is actually a preview from it. So if you'd actually like to learn about the program, Endless Motivation, what it's going to teach you is how to be completely fired up to do whatever it is that you want to do without dragging and without kind of fighting yourself in this weird inner battle in your mind where you're struggling to get to task and you're not sure if you want to do it. Imagine if you could flip all that around and whatever it is that you put your mind to, you would just go and do it. I created this program because frankly, I've given so many different directions over the years that people will watch as information entertainment. They call that infotainment, but they don't go execute it. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to make a program called Endless Motivation that will actually show you the exact specifics to get you to the promised land. That way, anything that you learn from me or anything you learn anywhere else, you'll put into practice very, very quickly. We do that both through video course, but also through community and also through actual real life interaction with me and my team. So if you'd like to get involved in that, click the link below right now. This is a preview for it. And in the meantime, what we're going to do is jump into this next preview of Endless Motivation, which is going to show you exactly how you need to be thinking about the work that you're doing so that you can change internally who it is that you're going to become. Let's do it. If you nail down your motivation, if you nail down your focus, if you nail down how you're using your time, if you actually start ingesting better resources, getting around better people, getting mentors, getting masterminds, getting around people that you're even helping and mentoring, and you actually start getting locked in on what it is that you want to do, your life could get really awesome. Your life could get really, 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 really awesome. So I like seeing you getting focused on this. And a lot of what we're talking about here sounds like, you know, it's serious and it's work. Look, it's all work. It's all work. Your life sucking is work. It's all work. Okay? Here's the difference. One is conscious and proactive. The other is unconscious and just responding to stimulus. It's all going to be work, no matter what you're doing. The cool thing is that if you work hard at this, you can actually get on the other side of it. You can actually get onto the other side of the issue, right? It's like learning social skills. People say, well, you know, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I don't want to go out. I don't want to work on my social skills. And it's like, okay, cool. But now, you know, you're going to meet someone you like, and you're going to be ruminating on them and thinking about them because you're in scarcity with meeting new people. And then you're going to make it this big deal. Think of how many hours you could burn down in a given month if you don't know how to meet people and bring them into your life. And then you're obsessing over somebody. You're going to burn down that either way. So understand that at a core level, your life is going to have work either way. You're going to have challenges and problems either way. So the question is, do you want the work of working a job that you don't like, being attracted to people or wanting to meet people you can't meet? You know, the biggest punishment that I think the average person gets is the illness and sickness that you wind up getting because you're putting the wrong food in your body in many cases. You know, not being able to, you know, watching your children not have the resources they need. There's all sorts of issues that go on here. You know, living life through in some kind of digital haze, some weird haze of fast food or crappy food.
needing drugs and alcohol to have any kind of entertainment, which is what most people are doing. Do you realize the average person's version of entertainment is getting higher drunk? The average person's version of entertainment is watching television. The average person's version of entertainment is looking at the internet, which is fine if you're getting something out of it, or maybe here or there. Things of moderation, I suppose. But you know the point, right? So there's going to be pain either way. But what we're talking about here is probably less work than actually what the average person deals with. They're dealing with unprocessed trauma, physical illness, mental illness, all sorts of different challenges that you're going to be dealing with. So it's one of these things where it's going to be work either way. Okay, there's work either way. It's just whether it's proactive or reactive, you got to make your choice. Understanding that there's going to be work either way, the next thing that you've got to start saying to yourself is, why are you doing it? And what I'm going to aim to do in this segment is I'm going to aim to hardwire why it is that you're doing what you're doing, so that it's more real to you than the diversions that are meant to suck up. Here's how you got to think about it. You live in inherently a predatory environment, but the prey that you are is your time, focus, momentum, and consistency. Okay? So they're preying on that. They're preying on your time. They're preying on your focus. They are preying on your momentum. You know the best work happens in momentum, right? They're preying on it. They're preying on your consistency. Okay? It's like a lion or tiger that is this hyper-efficient predator that is trying to get that from you. And what's going to happen, let's look here at a little bit of the chain of what happens. So for example, let's use drugs and alcohol first, and then what we'll do is we'll compare the regular system to drugs and alcohol in a very specific way. So let's go deep on this. So drugs and alcohol, what happens? Maybe you deal with light level trauma, maybe you're unhappy, maybe you just buckled to the peer pressure to want to be cool. Maybe you're at a bar or club, you met a group of people that are very attractive, and they want to have a wild, kinky night with you if you'll just get down like that and party with them, right? That'll actually happen. I know a lot of people that's happened to. They actually got real drug habits from it, What are you going to say? You meet 4 or 5 people from the club. They're all crawling all over each other, a little bit of white powder in the mix, hop on in, right? I get it. And I've seen friends become full-on drug addicts like that. Right? Maybe you're a club promoter. You're flying around like rappers on a private plane. Learn to be a club promoter through my Many of the top club promoters in the world actually learned that from my content. But when I see them, it's like a bright young person, bright in the eyes, having adventures. By the end of it, they're all strung out from drugs. They barely even know who I am anymore, even though I was probably one of the big influences to get them to try to learn about that stuff. So it's an unfortunate thing. So the way that drugs works, in my view, there's many different, kind of mechanisms that it's working on, but then we're going to compare this to regular day-to-day life. Basically what happens is that you're unhappy, so you take drugs, it makes you very, 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 very happy. Like as happy could be. Then what happens is that your life is falling apart while you're using the drug. So your life is actually not moving forward and going downhill while you're using the drug. Maybe you're making mistakes, maybe you're not, but it's burning down your time. But what it's also doing is it's messing with your ability to have sustained focus. You might even want to write that down. Drugs mess with your ability to have sustained focus. Then what they're doing is they're also messing with the impulse control sections of the brain. So now you have the inability to have sustained focus. You're not being consistent. You're not in momentum. You're not in the momentum that you could be in. You're not using your time effectively. You're not focusing effectively. It's depleting your ability for sustained focus, which is where all results are produced. And then what it's doing is it's also messing with impulse control. It's actually frying many of these drugs, the impulse control sections of the brain, same as booze. Then it's also making you uglier because it's hollowing you out. Then it's also getting it to where maybe you're stealing from people to get the drugs, so now it's messing with your social relationships. Maybe you get fired from work. So your life is getting worse and worse and worse. Your ability to focus and be happy independently is getting worse and worse and worse. And your impulse control is getting worse and worse and worse. So now what's happening is that the same life that you were running from before with drugs is actually a worse life, but you have less impulse control, but you have less sustained focus. You have more reason to use the drug. You're addicted on the drug. And it's also removed your ability to create sustained happiness. So for example, back in the day, I'd be teaching social skills. And one of the big things that I taught was how to go to a party or go to a bar or club and how to begin saying hi to people and how to begin engaging with people. And a lot of the time when you're doing that, you're nervous, right? But there's like very, very specific processes that you can use to go say hi to people to make yourself not nervous. That could be something like saying hi to everybody, not judging yourself negatively, finding something funny about every interaction. and building momentum. And these are things that actually take real mental discipline, right? So some people will use alcohol with socializing. By some people, I mean 99% of people. And they have liquid courage. And what the liquid courage does is it makes it to where you're not actually forced to learn all those processes. You're just drunk. You're not like, oh, 1,000 out of 10. That was funny. Meet the next person. Don't take it personal if it didn't go how I planned, right? You're not learning those processes that take discipline. So emotional leverage on yourself and getting yourself to be happy is a discipline. But what winds up happening is that you don't cultivate that discipline because of the fact that you're drunk. Being happy is also a set of mental habits. It could be things like being present to the moment, things like having a positive belief system, things like focusing on things that are funny, getting yourself to laugh, getting yourself into a flow state. And these are things that take real discipline. And so when you're getting high, it's taking you away from that. You might even make some sort of abstract arguments like, that is the core essence of who you are, and your brain is always kind of trying to erotically weave itself in with the ego and with social conditioning and with different biological drives and different addictions and different kind of mental maps of the status that you perceive yourself and only allowing yourself to have thoughts within that bandwidth, right? When in reality, a better mental habit would be, threading yourself in with joy for the process, joy for the present moment, being the witness in consciousness behind the ego. Just the love of life itself, the energy of life itself, right? So what drugs do is they take you away from those mental habits. They take you away from that, and they get it to where you get involved in drugs, right? When we think about physical intimacy, when you're intimate with somebody, you're touching them, you're inside of them, you're with each other, and what are you doing to stimulate yourself? You're thinking of the person. You're going, just thinking of the person. The smells, the sounds, the feelings, the connectedness, the connection, the energy exchange, right? That's an erotic connection with another human being. But we don't just make erotic connections with other human beings. We do with a bag of potato chips. You're doing the same thing with a bag of chips. The taste, the crunch, the smell, right? You're doing it with your ego. I'm the man, I'm cool, I'm this, other, right? It's the same thing. It's an erotic connection that you're making. So with drugs, now you're making this erotic connection to the drug, and you're getting into it. It's taking you away from the mental habits of enjoying the process itself, of knowing who you are, of having independent access to transcendent states, independent self-generated access to flow. It's getting you away from that. And what winds up happening, it winds up usurping your will. It winds up usurping your discernment. And so I've seen it with people that are addicted to drugs or alcohol, where the human, the core of who they are, is not even there anymore. You're literally, and I'm not meaning to dehumanize anybody. That's still a human being and a human soul and a human body that needs to be protected and valued. But what you'll also see is that in many different ways, I say that because I don't mean to dehumanize anybody. But if somebody's really in the throes of addiction, when you're speaking to them, the addiction could be running their mind. Their core essence, their soul has been ensconced in this black goop, and they're unaware of it. And what it's doing is it's messing with their perception. So their mind is filled with rationalizations, filled with altered perception, unable to see reality correctly in any way, shape, or form, and their will has been usurped. And it's to the point where you'll be talking to someone addicted to alcohol, and they're like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, I'm fine. Oh, I'm doing great. I'm off the alcohol." And they could have like a bottle of booze right there, and they're literally just going to turn around and pound it the second that you leave, or the second that you even turn away for 2 seconds. They don't know they're doing it. They're addicts. They don't know they're doing it. I've had it where a buddy of mine was so addicted on alcohol that, at first I thought it was like a joke. I thought he was kidding. But I realized over time, this isn't like some little party mode. This is actually serious. He would go to bed drunk, wake up with the bottle of booze, wake up and keep pounding the bottle of booze, right? And then he'd be drunk all day, go to bed with the booze, wake up and pound the bottle of booze. He would be blackout drunk for 5 or 8 days straight. And we'd wind up having to take him to the hospital for alcohol poisoning. He'd get some $7,000 bill at the hospital. He'd come out of the hospital and he'd go right back to drinking. But he'd look at you in the eye and he'd say, "Don't worry, I'm good. I'm not going to drink. We're good. We're solid." He'd say that. And what you have to understand is that with alcoholism, and this got to the point, by the way, that I was literally living with a roommate at the time. I got kicked out of that place because my buddy didn't want to live around that because I was letting him stay with me. I brought him to another place. He got kicked out of there, and I had to say to him, "We've got to go find you a homeless shelter because you're going to sneak this booze behind my back, and I'm going to have to put you in a homeless shelter." We had to tour homeless shelters because he couldn't stop doing it. So now you hear this, and it's sad, it's dangerous, and people die from it. And I'm watching my friend maybe on the verge of death. It's incredibly sad. Does anybody here have any family members or friends that are homeless? And does this resonate with what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that you've got to see it to believe it. Well, with that as a lead-in, what I would say is, where are you doing the exact same thing? You just don't realize that you're doing it. And people do this around many different things, many different addictions that we're doing this. And you think that your will is your own. I would assert that it's probably not. You believe that your discernment and ability to see reality is accurate. I'd say that it's probably not. You think that you can independently generate happiness? Most of us can't. Most of us need things that are external. And if we need things that are external to generate happiness, that means that you're, in effect, to some extent, a slave. And so the addiction to needing things outside yourself to be happy is actually running your mind. This is why independent access to flow states is so incredibly important. And this is actually what leads to your own expansion, because a lot of this is a flywheel, right? I want you to think about this as a flywheel. So when you have different addictions to negative things, and then it's removing your will, removing your discernment, removing independent access to flow, and it's doing this as a flywheel, you become an absolute slave to the things that are running you, and you don't realize that. And that's why you become a digital slave. That's why your whole life gets away from you. That's why your life's not that interesting, because these things are being injected into you. And what winds up happening is that as they're injected into you, they are preying on your focus, preying on your time, preying on your momentum, preying on your consistency, preying on your will, preying on your discernment, preying on your independent access to flow, preying on who you really are. And in effect, by a way of looking at it, and we might say metaphorically, we might not, it is looking to snuff out your soul. It is looking to snuff out that thing, that light that's inside your eyes. It's going to eat it and snuff it out. It's going to eat it and snuff it out. It's going to eat it and snuff it out, to the point that you'll be sitting in this room thinking that you exist, and you're basically this combination of autopilot thoughts that are just running, and you think that they're your thoughts, and they're not. And we could do exercises to snap you out of that and wake you up, and you'd start crying profusely, and you'd feel very much in regret for the way that you've been living. And I do a lot of exercise like that really snap people out of it and wake them up, and they're like shaking, like they just came out of a trance. And they've got a lot of processing to do at that point, because the things that are running them have been cleared out, at least temporarily. And that's a whole other process unto itself. Okay? And I'd urge you to really consider that, because your life will zoom right by. Now, that being the case, this, to me, is the main incentive to have some kind of a life purpose or some kind of a life goal, because it iron sharpens iron. It gives you something to fight this off with. Because absent that kind of a life goal or life plan, what are you really left with to fight off that process? You see what I'm saying here? It's like, well, meditate it out, right? Meditate it out. Or, look at my belief system and get it out, or things like that. But when you have some kind of a life's purpose or something that motivates you, what winds up happening is that it gives you, like, maybe you have that moment that you're behind on payroll, and then you're forced to dig a little bit deeper. You're forced to see reality a bit more clearly in order to get over the hump of payroll. Or maybe there's some kind of system that you have in your business that's running inefficiently, and you're forced to kind of like marshal more mental resources to solve that problem. Maybe you're unable to focus on something that you need to research for this thing that you're trying to build. And you say to yourself, you know what, I don't have the extended focus to actually look at this and do it. Like, look, everything that Owen said is cool, it sounds great, but I can't concentrate on this that long to be able to do it. I just don't have the stamina. Like, I'm just not you, bro. I'm not that person. I don't have that. I want to eat a Freezy Pop. I want to just watch some TV. I want to get high. I can't stop it. Right? And so it's this thing where what I find is that when you have some kind of life's purpose or some kind of something that just kind of drives you forward that you're excited about, when you have that, on some level, it helps you to fight off a lot of this spiritual mold, this spiritual cancer, this sort of spiritual rot that's going on inside of your system, inside of your psyche, inside of your soul. And so a lot of people will say things like, caring about money too much is about ego, or, caring about building a business, or caring about, materialistic things or things like that is about ego. I found just the opposite. I think that it can absolutely be used for ego when used in that sort of way, and that it can be its own trap. But I haven't really, I guess, in all my time living on the West Coast, and all my time going to spiritual seminars, and all my time meeting New Agey people, and all my time on Venice frickin' Beach, I just haven't honestly met anybody who's in the woo-woo world that I really viewed as being very, very elevated. Mostly what I saw was a lot of syrup, a lot of icky, sticky, sweet syrup of people that are just reframing their whole lives. Everything is love and light. It's all love and light. Okay, cool. Boom, kick him in the shins. Ow! Hey, it's love and light. Ow! Hey, love and light. I've had spiritual coaches, they get a parking ticket and they're sitting there kicking the tire, cursing out the person that gave them the ticket. I've had spiritual teachers that rob me. I've been on the Pauly Coast around hippies, and I say, what's your name? My name is Harvest Moon. No, but what's your actual name? Harvest Moon. Okay, well, where do you come from, Harvest Moon? We're all just floating in space, man. Okay, Harvest Moon, floating in space, that's cool. Well, anyway, good to meet you. I set up, Nepali Coast, beautiful, beautiful place in Hawaii. A lot of spiritual people go, and they actually stay out there for months. You wake up, go to bed, you wake up, your food's missing. Right? Where'd the food go? Frickin' Harvest Moon, right? You just know it, right? Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon's like jamming down your granola bar. This is mine. You're not really out in space. You're just some rich, bad person. Crumbs in their beard. I thought you're spiritual. You shouldn't be here, corporate capitalists. Harvest Moon's taking your granola bar. Harvest Moon doesn't care, right? Just dark, evil. Why? Because they're just suppressing natural biological drives. It's like the person who's like, parents wouldn't let them date any boys in high school, and they get to college and they're just like, all of you now, every hole, right? And you're like, what happened? And it's just so suppressed. Natural biological tendencies and drives are suppressed to the point that the person's out of balance. They're not owning that part of themselves, not integrated, and it's unhealthy and it's sick. And what you'll see, a lot of people that are in that Harvest Moon mode and in the New Age, what you're going to see is that they're the least spiritual people you're ever going to meet. They rob from each other, they steal from each other, they rationalize, and that is inevitable because they're not owning themselves completely. It's like if all that you do, at a certain point. Like if you just stay out in the cold, like say here in Chicago, you just stay out in the cold and you're never, ever, ever in warm weather ever, what's going to happen the second that you go near a radiator or something? You're going to be like, wow, like just rubbing on the radiator frantically, like some kind of weirdo, because you've been denying the ability to get warm for so long. We have different human drives or human needs or basic things like that. That's the temple that we're born into. So denying that, in my view, is not some spiritual conquest. All that's doing is making a lot of repression that's going to shoot itself out in some psycho way, okay, in some crazed, vampiric feeding fest. It's like if you didn't eat for like 10 years, you finally got some food, you just be shoving in your face, right? And that's like Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon's like, I don't need food. I don't need capitalism. I don't need life, right? Finally, Harvest Moon sees a granola bar. Okay, so it's okay to want to make a lot of cash. It's okay to want to go to cool places. It's okay to want to have a cool social life. It's okay to want to date people that you like. This stuff is fine. Don't let anybody tell you it's evil. It just depends if you're doing it out of ego. It depends if you don't have independent access to your own happiness. It depends if you need it. It depends on your relationship to it. Just repeat that after me. Your relationship to it. Your relationship. Okay, so it's about how you're relating to those things. There's a way to do this that is actually healthy and gets you more in a flow state and more expansive and more aware, more connected to your will, more connected to real discernment, more connected to independent access to flow states, independent access to transcendent states that you self-generated. There's ways of doing it to where, you're working and building, and the only way that you're gonna get through is if you can control your own state. And then there's ways of doing this that are run by the ego, and that's just a fact. So I want you to think now, I want you to think deeper on internally what kind of space that you taking on, building the life that you want to get to. Right? Do you want to make this the kind of thing where it's like about your ego, and you want to make it this thing where it's about you, and I can't be happy now, and I'll only be happy when, and right now I'm just so in pain and miserable, but if I finally had the money or finally had the significant other or dating life or whatever, then I'm going to be happy? Is that your relationship to it? Or could your relationship be that I want to expand, I want to wake up, I want to challenge myself. I want to learn to enjoy the process even more. I want to be more spiritually grounded, spiritually connected. I want to be somebody who others admire, not just for things that are materialistic, but somebody who others admire at a core essence level. Where I meet other high-level people and I look them in the eye and they see a radiance coming from me that's beautiful, that's powerful. Something that goes maybe even beyond this physical world. And that as you're building your life, you're connecting to that core essence. You're connecting to that element of yourself. So let's get in your groups and talk a little bit about what it is that you want to become internally, how you want this process to transform you. Who do you want to become through this process? Let me tell you something. I have a lot of very, very wealthy clients, and many of them are absolutely miserable. So and by the way, they get miserable because they have too much, and they're in the state of non-momentum. They get miserable because they have invested their entire ego and personality into their success. They get miserable because they feel that, they can go out to the bar or club and crush everybody else, and that's great. But then on one night they don't get it, and it doesn't feed their ego, and it makes them upset and miserable. But they're on a roller coaster up and down. What I would recommend is getting to the point where you're in the zone, you're in a flow state, you're in a state of expansion consistently across the board, and you enjoy all of it, the highs and the lows, and that you allow the highs and lows to actually shape you in a powerful way. So get in your groups and talk about who you wish to become internally via this process that we're talking about, and how you want to transform, and how you want to become more internally, not just externally, but internally, how this can change who you are at a core level. Let's get in your groups. Let's go.
So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you're going to do the exercise. I hope that it's given you a lot of food for thought. In the meantime, though, the best thing that you could do right now is click the link below and jump into the new program, Endless Motivation, where we're going to be taking you much, 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 much deeper than anything that you saw in this video. And we're going to be using both extra videos, much, much more video content, but also having an online community and also real-life interaction with me and my team. And we're going to be taking you to the next level. This is the next big deal that I'm putting on. I'm really, really excited about it. Click the link below right now and jump in, and I'll see you inside the course.